And welcome back to another episode of Over the Glass. I am your host, Jay.
I'm other hostess. Welcome, welcome.
And today we're going to open up with, we'll see if there's a trade that can top this one. For us Sharks, I would say maybe the biggest one for us in our franchise is probably the Blackwood trade. I don't necessarily know if we're going to top that. Maybe if Granlund gets moved or someone unexpected hasn't been in conversations, who knows? But I think the biggest one at the NHL level is probably this trade of Mikko Rantanen over to the Carolina Hurricanes for Martin Necas, Jack Drury, a handful of picks, the 2025 second-round pick, and then a 2026 fourth-round pick, and Chicago trades over Taylor Hall and is essentially the broker in this massive trade. So I'm going to direct the first reactions over to you, Ness, because I think you had some feels in regards to this particular trade occurring.
Yeah, I mean, a couple seasons ago when the Avalanche were really good and they were going for their cup run, I was paying a lot of attention to the team, and it was really exciting to watch them. Rantanen with McKinnon and Cale Makar still being pretty new to the league or whatever. They're an exciting group of players to watch, and this feels like, I guess as a fan from the outside, you could say it was kind of expected because of the cap space that the Avalanche didn't have to sign Mikko for what he was asking for. But for someone like me who wasn't really paying attention to their cap situation and stuff, it was really shocking to see that they actually made this move. And the fact that, yes, it was a 3-team trade, but Carolina only receives one player out of all of these moving pieces. This guy is that good. This is a big deal, right? I was surprised. I don't know, even the players, I was looking through Twitter, some players' reactions. I saw McKinnon's and he was really surprised by it. He wasn't expecting it at all. He had mentioned not trade talks, but negotiation talks with Landeskog a couple seasons ago, and he thought that maybe they were just going to wait till the very last second to make something happen. But they couldn't, I guess. Who's their GM? Sakic? The Avalanche?
I don't know off the top of my head. Let's ask Google real quick.
I think it's Joe Sakic. Either way, he didn't seem to want to keep him around for the money he was asking for. It sounds like they weren't even offering him anything leading up to the trade. So, yeah, it's just crazy. My favorite part of this graphic.
The GM, as far as my quick Google search, and maybe there are people screaming at us while we're talking about this going, no, you're wrong. It says Chris McFarland.
Oh, yeah, that's the name I saw going around. Yeah, you're right. Okay. That's my bad.
Thank you, Google. Yeah, I don't, obviously the Avs going for their cup run a couple of seasons back, it was exciting. It was also really cool to see another team in the conversation that wasn't your usual suspects. But it definitely does seem like he's one of those players that you kind of would want to keep for the long haul. It doesn't the information that's been trickling out since that trade was announced. It opens up a lot more questions because I wasn't able to find. I saw it in passing. I wasn't able to find it before we hopped on again today, but it sounded like even though the number that came out was that Mikko Rantanen was asking for $14 million, and that's a large. Obviously, he's deserving of it, right? He's part of that cup run, and he's the guy that you pretty much have in your first and second line, first power play producing all this stuff. Like we always talk about, like with Blackwood, he played himself out of the Sharks, and as much as we loved him, I don't think we should have given him what he deserves. And so we have to, make the hard decision of we have to go make that trade and find out and get things that will help our party out and then say farewell to Blackwood. But from what I was seeing since that trade came out, there was no advanced discussion with Rantanen's camp about the parameters of a potential extension before the trade was completed. I saw a quote from him, I'm paraphrasing from my memory, that he was actually willing to continue having these discussions. Maybe he'd be able to move down from his 14 million asking number. But I guess it seems from the Avalanche response that they kind of already saw and had the discussions that they felt were needed, and they didn't feel confident that worst case scenario. And I'm going to look it up real quick, because when we were having this discussion, I brought up, the whole Matthew Tkachuk situation with names. Like that happened a couple seasons back, and he's one of those guys. I believe that he was drafted by them. Yep, 6 overall from the Calgary Flames. Let me pull up. Let's see. He was traded on. Oh, okay. So he had no intention to sign a long-term deal with them. So they pretty much similar-esque situation where he was on, he was up for UFA. So you're trying to get something for him, and since this information, I want to say, was available to other GMs and things like that, you don't have the upper hand. GMs know that, we can try and get the most out of you, because if it doesn't work out, the clock is ticking. Tkachuk is going to become available sooner rather than later. You don't have any basically you're going to end up, if you play hardball too long, you're not going to get any value out of him, and he's just going to walk, and then it's going to be really bad for your franchise. In Rantanen and the Avs case, not as dire, but perhaps they were trying not to get into this situation where they're talking about it for the next couple of months, blah, 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 comes down to the wire. They still can't figure it out. And, we've seen throughout each season that I want to say there's a bit of an upper hand when you're trading during right before the deadline, because all these teams, they know where their team is going to be at this very moment. They don't know what's going to happen once the offseason occurs and they have to make moves and think about next season. They're in it right now. What is going to help us right now? And Mikko Rantanen looks like someone that, we know the Canes have been sniffing at the playoffs. Natchez is a very good player for them. Top power play. I think he was on their first line. I think Drury, I don't know a whole lot about him, but it seemed like the bigger piece of that pie was Natchez. But ultimately, everything is being built around how to Rantanen was the big piece of the picture there, and they were trying to balance out the trade. So I don't know. I've kind of had small discussions here and there with some other friends and their opinions. I had the friend I went to the game last night. He was 1,000%. The Avalanche should have given Rantanen the 14 million. And I said, well, wait, what about Makar? And he started talking about they'll have money, the cap's going up. And I said, well, do we know that for sure? I was feeling more conservative about I was leaning towards the Avs they did good work, but we'll see in the next couple of seasons if that pans out. We'll see even with the Canes because the Canes don't have an extension as part of that signing for Rantanen. So it's very possible that they just gave up Natchez, Drury. I want to say those 2 picks came from them as well. Yeah, both those picks that went over to the Avs were. So the Canes are like, if we're in a poker game, they went all in.
Basically. Yeah.
And if they go all in and they get knocked out in the first round and Rantanen doesn't sign with them, like, I don't like brace for impact. So I'd say, yeah. So my initial reaction to it is I feel like the Avs did a good thing here with like, they're like, we don't want to wait this out any longer. We're going to try to get the most value for you right before trade deadline. But we'll see for the Canes and the Avs how this works out for each of them, because could very well, like, I mean, obviously at the end of the day, you're trying to go for the cup, and if you get knocked out in the first round and like Rantanen doesn't sign, and for some reason Natchez doesn't work out, maybe he's like in the honeymoon phase right now. He got. Like before we hopped on, I mean, the Avs are playing the Rangers right now, and Natchez was in on, I think, 2 goals, and Drury is in on 1. So looks like they're acclimating just fine right off the bat. So that's something nice that you like to see. And then obviously the Hawks, Taylor Hall, he's kind of like the equivalent of what the certain players that we've talked about will maybe heading out on a Sharks trade at some point. Taylor Hall's that guy for them. Get some value out of him. They have cap space they're retaining $4.625 million on Rantanen's contract. Then they're just giving up Hall. Like,
Paul, and then they got their own pick back from, I believe, the Canes. I don't know how much sense this makes for the Blackhawks. I think because they are technically a team that's still rebuilding, it makes sense for them to get a pick out of it. I think it's funny that they got their own pick back in this trade. So it's really like you gave up Hall to retain salary. I don't understand it. I did see someone who does cover the Blackhawks. His name's Mario Tirabassi. Sorry if I butchered your name. Posted a tweet last night actually, seeing a lot of outsiders' perspective going in on the Blackhawks today. The bottom line for them in trading Taylor Hall is they get another pick inside the top 70 of draft selections this year and opened up a roster spot for a prospect to come up to the NHL soon. Which, yes, I can understand that, but this take feels a little glass half empty, very optimistic. Like the other 2 teams obviously gave up a lot in the trade to do what they need to do to compete, and the Blackhawks are kind of just there. And I think it's hilarious when I first saw the graphic that the Avalanche posted to announce the trade. It's like big letters, trade, big pictures of Mikko Rantanen, Drury, and Natchez, and then obviously the details under it. And then right at the very bottom, very little, is the Blackhawks logo that says Chicago facilitated trade.
There you go. We put up the graphic. We're trying something new today. Personally, it looks a little awkward with the graphic, but but there you go. That's the graphic if you're watching us on YouTube. And Chicago's there. There's a little mention down below.
Like a little asterisk.
Yeah.
Just hang out there. By the way, we're here.
Maybe there's something we don't know yet. Maybe Chicago's got some under the table like handshake deal that somewhere down the line you're gonna do us a solid. The whole future considerations cooked in there somewhere. So,
yeah, basically. What a trade, though.
Yeah,
and to happen on a Friday night, that was an interesting choice. Like people are tired from the week. people are getting home just to like relax or maybe go out on a Friday night. And no, you wanna drop this bombshell of a
The Avs
trade?
said, sit down.
We'll give you something to talk about this weekend. Yeah, it's wild.
Well, we're talking about it, so good job.
No, for real.
Yeah, that'll be really interesting to kind of take a look in the immediate how both these teams do heading into what I imagine they're both going to make the playoffs, how successful their team will be. Obviously, Mikko Rantanen and Natchez, I don't know a whole lot about Drury, but the two that I first mentioned, they've been great with the clubs that they were on previously. You have to imagine that they're going to be really, really productive with the teams that they're on now. Taylor Hall, I mean, he's just been kind of moving all around, just trying to find a home for himself. And I don't know if that's with the Canes. I don't know a whole lot about how their cap situation is going, but I saw the lineup yesterday or today, can't remember, but Taylor Hall was on the fourth line, but there's a lot of really talented players on the Canes lineup, so he may just be starting there until he gets familiar with how their team plays, and maybe he gets moved around. But Brandon, I believe, was right up there with like their heavy hitters. So it'll be interesting to see how both those teams do in the playoffs. What occurs in the off season, as we mentioned, Rantanen is sent over there and with no extension, so he still has free will to do anything that he wants until something comes about before the free agency opens up in July. So yeah. Best of luck to all of those fan bases that are affected during this trade. That is neither one of ours.
No, for real. Not just fan bases. I don't know if you saw, but on I want to say this is Instagram, when the Avalanche announced it, they gave him a little dedication post, said, "A champion, a leader, and forever the Moose. Thank you for a decade of memories in burgundy and blue." Eric Johnson commented, very simple reaction, just said, "What the hell?" And then when they announced, they posted a trade alert, the Avalanche did. Eric Johnson again commented, "Just fell to my knees in the club."
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, he's silly. But the guys, the actual team is probably going through their own little grief process right now, losing a teammate that they've played with for about a decade, and that's like your best bud you're losing, that's sucks for them, but it is what it is.
Would you rather be, if you were a Mikko Rantanen, and you're at like still at the peak of your game on a fairly good team, and you're traded off to another team, and you're kind of like one of the first of that elite squad, or would you want to be in Tomas Hertl's situation where you're like the last of the elite squad hanging around?
I don't know, actually. Probably the first, because if you're the last of the good players on a team, you're already doing pretty bad. Like, the team is not doing well if everyone else has been traded off. So there's a little bit of misery in playing the game at that point. But if you're the first to be shipped off, you're like you're leaving before things get too bad.
I agree. I would rather be the first to leave, because in Hertl's situation, he was he was part of our just landslide, and he in the way that he is, he wanted to come in every night and do a good job and help out the team. And when you can't do it because you just don't have the pieces in place, you see a guy who's always smiling and is like not smiling as much, and you're like, oh no, we broke Hurdle's spirit. So
I don't know.
See like how hard it hits him.
Right.
I think I would feel that if I, were in his situation. So
for sure,
that's to go out on the high.
I don't know if you saw more trade rumors, but supposedly, from what I hear, I don't remember who posted this, like Kevin Weeks or something. There is a bigger trade in the works happening than this Rantanen trade. And I can't imagine what it's going to look like because this was big. This is a lot of people moving around, a lot of pieces. I don't know whose name is bigger than Rantanen right now. And also, supposedly the Penguins are in trade talks as well, which
they
is
better be.
Right. But I'm curious to know what name is floating around. Do you think they're going to trade Erik Karlsson again?
I already saw some mentioning about how he may be on the move as well. And
Really?
it kind of makes sense because, he's not getting any younger. I just don't know.
Listen, I feel no sympathy for the guy because why would you choose the Penguins? They weren't doing well when you went over there.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. That all I know is the Penguins, if they need to start moving bodies. They need to do something because the ship is sinking. It is the Titanic. And you don't want to be Jack.
Right. Never let go, and yet
no, let go. Let go. So in other news, wait, let me move this up one before we get into a bunch of Sharks talk. Did you happen to see that the Minnesota Wild put out a playlist that was compiled by Marc-Andre Fleury, and it's just got like the hot jams of the 2000s?
I did not. I'm looking at it right now.
This hit on a Thursday, I want to say. And all I've got to say is I love Marc-Andre Fleury a million times over. Let me see if I can
I love the photo they used.
Yeah, that's him back in the day. Let me see if I can show this to the lovely folks. So here's the playlist. It's got Dr. Dre, Eminem, Forget About Dre, got some Daft Punk. The Disturbed really hit for me, Down with the Sickness. So like that was a jam back in the day. Classic Sandstorm. Got some Gaga in here, Paper Planes, Shakira. Milkshake was that was an experience. I will say though, yeah, this was Headstrong. Yep. All I will say is my one critique is less Creed. Less. I skipped the Nickelback and the Creed. I tried. I couldn't do it. Other than that, check this out. It was a good time.
That's so silly.
This made me very productive on a Thursday. I was feeling Thursday.
Very nostalgic. Like in the club.
It was
Fergalicious. I can only imagine Fleury listening to Fergalicious while getting ready for warm-ups.
So
guy.
go check this out. You can find it on the Wilds web Twitter page. It's a good listen. All right. So before we get into our favorite team, who's been yet again on the struggle bus, we are going to take a moment to talk about our sponsor.
Playoffs? We're talking about playoffs? You bet we are. Get in on the action at DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NFL. Scoring touchdowns is key to winning the playoffs, and you can score big by betting on them at DraftKings, the #1 place to bet touchdowns. Ready to place your first bet? Try betting on something simple like a player to score 6. Go to the DraftKings Sportsbook app and make your pick. New DraftKings customers can bet $5 to get $200 in bonus bets instantly. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app and use code THPN. That's code THPN for new customers to get $200 in bonus bets instantly when you bet just $5. Only on DraftKings Sportsbook, the crown is yours. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. In New York, call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY 467-369. In Connecticut, help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-777 or visit ccpg.org. Please play responsibly. On behalf of Boot Hill Casino Resort, Kansas, 21 plus age and eligibility varies by jurisdiction. Void in Ontario. Bet must win to receive reward. Bonus bets expire 168 hours after issuance. For additional terms and responsible gaming resources, see dkng.co/audio.
Okay, and tomorrow we're going to read off a couple of the money line. The New Jersey Devils go against the Flyers. The Devils are a negative 155 to the plus 130 for the Flyers. The Kings go against the Red Wings. The Kings are a minus 142 against the plus 120 Wings. The Canucks go against the Blues. The Canucks are a minus 102. The Blues are a minus 118. The Kraken go against the Oilers. The Kraken are a plus 230. The Oilers are a negative 285. And the Pens go against our Sharks. The Pens are a minus 170 and our Sharks are a plus 142.
What a great way to segue into the Sharks.
I know. Speaking of the Sharks. So I came across, it's been a week, but I'm going to start off with, last week we talked a little bit about George Kittle because we had a back-to-back games or matchups against the Predator, or it was this week, right? What is time?
Yes,
this happened recently. We were talking about George Kittle. He's notorious for being a huge hockey fan. His team is the Predators. He was shown at the Preds game, all decked out, everything like that. I've mentioned that I give him a pass because he's a fan and die hard. But this is also valid. Ariel at W88KIES on Twitter called out our George Kittle because Kyle Juszczyk was at a home game recently. And so Ariel says, if Kyle Juszczyk can show up to a Sharks game, what is stopping you at GKittle46 from doing so? So I want to stop there and start with just that alone.
Yeah, he shows up to the Preds games. Why can't he show up to some Sharks games?
But does he? But he shows up to the Preds at their home, right?
Right.
As far as I have seen, he has not shown up to a game. I mean, right now, I believe he's in Nashville off season for the 49ers. So I guess in this scenario, I give him a pass that he's not currently in the Bay, but we've seen, of course, Draymond Green has come out to see Celebrini. We know the Golden State Warriors, they have a busy schedule, things and such. The Niners, they've got I know that they've got practices, but they only have the one game a week. What are you doing for the rest of the week where 3 to 4 games are happening for the Sharks? So George Kittle comes back and says, I live in Nashville, shrug, water emoji, sweating. That's not a good enough excuse for me, George.
Wasn't for Ariel either.
Yeah, so Ariel comes back and says, but you're in the Bay during the season. Let's cook and make it happen at San Jose Sharks.
Yeah, I do remember Kittle attending a Sharks game before when they were good during playoffs. But I haven't seen him come out to support since. I don't know if it has to do with how busy he is, whatever he does outside of football, or because the Sharks suck. But either way, like, you could still support a team that you play a town over from.
We're just around the corner, George. I don't know where you live outside of coming to Santa Clara for your games, but we're just in the backyard. You could come say hi.
Right.
All right. In other news,
Sharks.
we made a trade of Justin Bailey.
A blockbuster trade.
Huge, massive trade for Pavel Regenda, which I talked about this briefly with my friend last night. I don't really know what to make of it. I mean, it just looks like my initial reaction is maybe Bailey just didn't want to be around here anymore. Maybe I know that he played last season with the Sharks, and he hasn't seen a single game with the big club all season. Mm-hmm. So that's my initial reaction that maybe he's like, I want a shot at getting back into the big club. And if that's not in the pipeline for me, that's my feeling. Mm-hmm. That's completely going with no information on the inside. So that's just my gut reaction. I have no idea who Pavel Regenda is, but welcome to the CUDA.
Because that's where you will be playing.
Welcome.
I like the first comment here that says, Sharks now have Drew Remenda and Pavel Regenda.
Nice.
Yeah, I haven't heard of this kid, and I'm not surprised that if Bailey really wanted out he didn't seem happy playing for the CUDA last year. He seemed better when he was playing with the Sharks. Was that last year? 2 years ago? I can't even remember. It's been so long.
It is time.
Right.
Yeah.
Either way.
He was here once upon a time, and he has not been since.
Right. He wants a shot playing in the NHL again, so you do what you got to do. You weren't going to get a shot here unless you were putting in some work, because it's getting competitive to come up to this team now. So, it is what it is.
And then some more information or some more moves that were done this week. Mike Greer claimed Ford Walker. Ooh, how do you say his last name? Duer?
Let's say Duer.
I am so sorry. I know he played last night. He looked okay. So he's 27, appeared in 16 games with the Calgary Flames this season, registering 1 assist. Career high of 40 games with the Flames last season, finishing 7 points, 2 goals, 5 assists. Personal best is 7 goals and finishing 11 points in 27 games with the Calgary Flames 2 seasons ago. He's played 84 career NHL games with Calgary and tallying 19 points. So I don't really know what to make of it other than, okay, depth player.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we've traded a number of times, like we've gotten Kovalenko. We didn't really know too much about him in the return for Blackwood, but he seems to be doing okay with the club. So I'm kind of sitting back and observing, trying to make sense of this move by Mike Greer. But other than that, like, okay, sure.
Yeah, I think his first game playing was on Thursday against the Preds, and he ended up scoring a goal. When he first goal as a Shark, which seemed fun. I think it's interesting. I was looking through the comments on this post, and Nathan Pepin at nuclear_awesome gave us a little insight. Said Dura is amazing if you play him in a role that fits his style. The last 2 seasons he was being played as a grinder and hasn't played well, but when he was given a third line scoring role, he was electric. So that's something to keep an eye on, I suppose. Someone who actually has watched him play. He did seem to be doing really well. I don't know what line he played up on Thursday, but he scored a goal. There's some guys that just because they're not producing the way a William Eklund will are given grinder roles, and they're not really fit for those roles either. So hopefully Warsawski knows what to do with this kid, and he can do some fun things for us too.
Yeah, like similar to Kovalenko, he's a guy that it seems like these types of moves by Mike Greer are being done in observation of there's a player that's in who's like on the outside looking in, or somewhere in the pipeline where if they were on a team like the Sharks, they would get the opportunity to have a bigger role versus a team that they're on. They're just stuck that 8th spot or whatever. Like if they're 7th or 8th spot, if they're a defenseman, or outside of the top 12 for the forwards, and they just need that extra. They just need that opportunity to show that, they can crack it here in the lineup, or the team that they were on previously. They're just kind of the folks that are there right now. They're just working for that club, and it's unfortunate, but it just seems like he is looking for those types of players that you can grab for a fair value, and you can give them that chance here with the Sharks. And whether they turn into someone who's going to be here for the long haul, or maybe in the next couple of seasons, if let's say, I don't know if what his contract looks like. But it's guys that, right now we're rebuilding the prospect pool, we're collecting draft picks. And so this is like another way to find guys who can be helpful in the lineup while we continue to build up this franchise again to hopefully be contenders in the seasons to come. So yeah, so this type of move I'm chill with. Let's see how they do in the lineup, and if they don't work out, well, we didn't really give up anything by claiming him, so
Right.
nothing to be upset about.
Right. It's like if it doesn't work out, it's fine. We didn't give up anything. If it does work out, maybe you can trade him for another pick or something, like a Mikey Isemont situation.
Right. All right. So shall we talk about this week's handful of games?
I suppose it's been a long week. Outside of work, dude, I've had such a long week at work. But outside of work, the Sharks seem to have also had a long week at work. But not just them, like the NHL, there's been a lot going on, Obviously, we already talked about the Rantanen thing. We didn't even cover that Connor McDavid actually was suspended for a few games, which sucked for my fantasy team because I wasn't getting any goals. But yeah, dude, I didn't catch the game on Tuesday. I was keeping up with the score again on my phone. It was like, all right, they seem like they're doing great. It was like 5-1 at one point when I looked, and then the next thing I know, they lost 7-5. I'm like, what happened? Did you watch that one?
Yes. So I guess there was forgettable things for when we went up against the Bruins because we just skipped right over that game. I don't honestly remember
I forgot
that.
that you played on Monday.
We played on Monday. We lost 3-6. I mean, the Bruins, obviously, they're scratching their way back up. They started out real bad. And they're trying to find their way back into playoff contention conversations. So we gave them a boost on Monday by beating us. And then the Sharks immediately went over to Nashville. We went against the Predators, who are really struggling this season. They're right down there at the bottom with us, but we came out strong in the first period, and then I don't know what happened after that. But I will say that as upsetting as it is to have an exciting first period and then to see it all just kind of explode on itself. I mean, the third period was basically 4 unanswered goals. The last one was an empty netter, but they basically left us in the dust. We chased UC Saros out of the net early, but then the Predators shifted into next gear and took over shortly afterwards. But I can't be too upset by it because I did see a reporter put out a tweet saying, "Is this rock bottom?" And I kind of went,
No.
Like, did you see the last couple of seasons before this? Did you see last season where, like, I still remember just the sinking, awful feeling of that. If it was already bad enough, the beginning of last season's losing streak, where we're like, oh no, like I knew it was going to be bad, but like this is bad. Like, how are we going to be able to handle 82 games of this? But then, they kind of turned around and we kind of got, some exciting games. But that power play, I believe, is just like god awful. Just like just not have a power play. Like penalties are supposed to, like when you drop penalties, it's supposed to be exciting to go on the power play. And I did not feel that at all last season. I'm like, can we just not watch this? And then, Blackwood getting injured, and then our Kuda goalies coming up, and that I believe one of the final games we had with the Oilers that went up, like they beat us like 10 to whatever, and that was just beyond. Like, I don't ever want to see something like this again. And even then, you can't say that was rock bottom because there were several seasons before that when we should have been rebuilding, but we were still trying to make it into the playoffs, and we were just like, with what?
Yeah.
And how many coaches did we fire in an attempt to fix the problem? So no, this is not rock bottom. And at the end of the game, Sheng put together his article that reviews the game, and his tweet, he had said pretty much completely opposite of that sort of reaction, where despite the fact that we lost in this awful fashion, we didn't even have a first period to be that excited about last season.
Mm-hmm.
We were seeing none of that last season at any point during our games. Maybe like little hiccups of it, but not a whole series of periods where we felt like we could really
Yeah.
win this game. And even though we didn't win, I'm like, that was still a really exciting first period. I can't be mad about that. We just need to figure out how to close it out.
Right. Shut them down. I think last season the Sharks really struggled to score. So you would see like them getting blown out 10-1, 5-1, getting shut out, whatever it was. They couldn't find the back of the net for the life of them. This year, while they're still losing, at least it feels like they're still in it until, the very last second of the game. It doesn't matter how many goals they're losing by. They're still fighting for the most part. This week was a little tough to watch because you could see them getting exhausted and not trying as hard, which is probably contributed to the 26 goals against this week. It's just insane. But, I think offense is not the problem this year. I think it's really the defense. Didn't matter which goalie was in net. They were really struggling to keep the opponent from scoring at all. So I don't know what they need. Are they going to try finding a defenseman or a couple defensemen to help, or do that during the off season? Like, I don't know where they go from here, but Greer, figure it out, please. This is tough.
So last week I sung praises of Alexander Georgiev looking like he's turning a corner.
Do you take it back?
Yeah, like I don't feel like he's having any potential to get moved by the trade deadline. Okay. During these Predators games, there were a couple, like the third period for, I think he played the one in Nashville. I believe that third period, there were a number of goals where I'm like, you have got to have those. Despite the defense of the Sharks not helping you out, there were some of those where it was you in particular need to have that. And he didn't. And then the game on Saturday,
he finally got pulled.
That goal right before he got pulled, he just looked like he was just shell shock. I mean, it's the Florida Panthers, but you have to have that one. And so he got pulled. Askarov came in. So I was at that game. I got to sit fairly close. I was in section 114, so there was a lot of action happening. That's the closest I've ever sat, row 5. We were right there for when Smitty scored, and he turned to the crowd, and I was like, he's looking at us.
Oh my God.
So when Askarov came in the second period, he was in at that end, so I got to watch him real up and close. So that was exciting. The Sharks didn't quite help him out all that well, but yeah, Georgiev. I asked my friend, so I told him the same thing. Right now Vanacek is injured, so I feel like he's off the potential of getting traded anyway. Because one, I mean, yes, his face is fractured, so it isn't necessarily anything in terms of like concern that he wouldn't be available next season, unless something bigger is happening with his face that we don't know about. But with Georgiev, he was looking okay last week, like he was coming around the corner. But this week, like I said, despite the Sharks not helping out either one of our goaltenders, there were a number of goals that went against him where I just cannot defend you there. And it's unfortunate because you want him to do well, and I just don't feel like it's going to be enough before trade deadline occurs. And I asked this question to my friend. I'm going to ask it to you. Who, of course, Askarov he's signed. He has potential to start with us next season, depending on how all that goes. But for a backup between Vanacek and Georgiev, who would you give a contract to?
This one's tough because I haven't had the opportunity to actually watch Vanacek this season. If you remember, I wasn't able to watch the first games, like the first couple months, so I didn't really get to watch him play. But I think based off of that, I would probably want to keep Vanacek just to see if he fares better than Georgiev has so far, because we're getting a good look at him right now, and it's like, sure, you're struggling. I might keep Vanacek.
Yeah, I'm leaning towards Vanacek. Just the handful of games that I was able to see him at the beginning of the year, it just doesn't seem like he's the shell shock factor. It's just, I think Vanacek is, I don't see him having the same situation as Georgiev right now. Georgiev seems very much in his head about it. He just, that final goal before Askarov came in, I was just like, I can't help you there, bud. I mean, I know they didn't help you, but it just seems like when Askarov is in there, and of course he has things he needs to work on, but when you're looking at it as Georgiev's been in this league for a while now, Askarov has been on the outside looking in. He's finally getting an opportunity. This is his season to flex what he's got and room to, to have a longer leash. Georgiev does not have the same. He's on a much shorter leash. For how long he's been in this league, for all those reasons. So yeah, but if he doesn't move on before the trade deadline occurs, well, he's going to be here with the club for the duration of before we say adios and everyone gets to go and play in the playoffs. So it may just be the 1 week, and we could be talking about something completely different in the weeks to come. But very rough week for Georgiev. Very unfortunate to see. Rough week for the Sharks in terms of they started off really well. They started off really well again, with the Predators game when they came into town here. It seemed less chaotic, if my memory serves me correctly, but then again, there's been a lot of games this week.
No, Thursday was pretty chaotic. The first period, I think 5 goals were scored, and then the 3 fights happened within 4 seconds.
Oh yeah, I totally forgot. Okay, what is your feeling on those 3 fights?
Okay, so I actually was able to watch this game, and I tuned in just in time because the Sharks were down 3-0, and they were getting ready to face off. And then I believe Cunnin started off the fight the fight frenzy. And I was like, all right. This usually happens. Cunnin usually steps up to do this because he's trying to get the boys going, whatever. And then, they separate the guys, they put them in their penalty boxes, and then you're getting ready. All right, here comes fight drop. And then it was, I think Goodrow went next. We were like, what the hell is happening? Was this planned? And the same thing, they separate them, whatever. And you're like, all right, that's interesting. And then they're like ready for the game to start, but nope. Then here comes Ty Dellandrea. he wants a piece of it too. So that was insane. I was like, what is happening? Like, is this hockey or are we watching boxing? Like, I don't understand. I don't think I was a big fan of it because to me, I don't, well, I've never played hockey, but I don't really see how the fights can get the boys going, quote unquote, as is what they say, right? Like, what does it trigger their testosterone levels? I don't understand. But I guess it worked because they definitely woke up after that and started playing better and scored a couple goals before the period ended. And they were fighting, like that was a really fun game to watch. The second period, I believe the Preds scored 2 more and then the Sharks scored 3. It was tied. And then something like that. Anyway, the Preds ended up winning 6-5 that game with the last goal scored in the third. I can't remember how that happened, but yeah, I don't I bet it was a really exciting game to watch in person with the fights and all, but at home it's like, what are you doing? Just play the game.
Yeah, I kind of feel the same way about the fights. I literally, when it was happening, so Thursday, I was actually really struggling to watch this game because, like you, I just had a really long week at work, and despite the Fleury playlist getting me going and really productive at work, by the time work ended, I was like, man, I am so tired. And when the game started, I was getting ready to watch it, but I was already feeling half asleep. And so that just continued to decline throughout the duration of the game. My second period, my eyes were falling. My eyelids were falling down. By the third, I went to bed, but I was playing it on my laptop. And I was telling my friend I was messaging, I may or may not be watching this third right now. It was just bad. So, like when they would score, I'm like, I was so tired. But yeah, I am remembering aspects of the game now. So it kind of felt like an opposite situation to the Preds game in Nashville versus when they were here in Nashville. We seemed like we're here, we're ready to play, and then it went downhill from there. With the game here at home, we carried over, we're not ready to play, and then the series of fights, I was kind of like, really? Okay, sure, whatever. And then it just seemed ridiculous with each next fight that they had. I'm like, are we gonna play this game or what? But like you said, however that gets the boys going, it apparently got the boys going. Our new guy got us started, and then Ferraro came in after that. Second period, the Predators were answering back, but then the Sharks scored 3, and then the third was pretty neck and neck until, I don't remember what happened in this last goal, but yeah, that's kind of the Sharks week in a nutshell. Like, what even happened? On Saturday, like, I wasn't feeling terribly confident that, it's the Florida Panthers. They won last season. They won it all. So you're kind of expecting that this is going to be a very, very rough game. But it was Lunar New Year. So there were a lot of nice aspects about that night. So I went and I got one of the hats. You can see design. Eric Boone was in attendance as well. He talked with our in-arena host, Emily. Really cool to see, local guy who's an artist get his design on a bunch of merch. They're super awesome. So the Lion did the puck drop. I got really excited about that. I was like pushing my friend going, oh my God, the Lion's going to drop the puck.
That's fun.
I'm trying to think of some other things that happened in the game. Mostly that night was really about the experience. Like I said, I've never sat that close before during an actual game. It was cool. There was a lot of action in our spot. A lot of guys like I didn't get exactly what I wanted. Where I wanted to like a heavy check, like right in front into the glass, but there were a lot of real close calls with that. Yeah, so it was very exciting from the little bits that I did get to see. I have to watch this game like highlights again because the downside of sitting that close is I have no idea what's going on the other side of the ice.
Right.
I was just looking down going, well, I hope they're doing well down there. Like I can't really see what's happening.
Right.
But Matthew Tkachuk, he just like, what is that mouth guard even good for? He spends the whole time that he was down there. I just happened to hone in when he was down there throughout the game, and he is just chewing on his mouth guard as he's skating around. Blah blah blah. There were a couple other guys like that on the Sharks as well. Yeah, weird things that I observed with getting to be that close to see the guys. But yeah, so trying to think of some other things, but I'm sure they'll come to me later. Do you get to watch any of the Saturday?
I didn't. I worked 6 days this week. I've been running the shop basically on my own. I injured myself. I'm exhausted. I took it easy yesterday. I was like, I don't feel like watching this game right now. I have no energy. I did catch the highlights this morning, but it seemed very similar to the way the Preds game went on Tuesday, where the Sharks felt like they were in it in the very beginning. I think the Panthers scored first, and then the Sharks answered back, scored another one, had the lead 2-1, and then the Panthers scored like 6 unanswered goals. It's so disappointing, but like the way the things have been going this week, it's not super surprising. But it's like I mentioned earlier, like I don't know what the defense is doing. They're collapsing. One of the goals scored was Vlasic giving up the puck right at the point. He's trying to clear it, which I could understand, but it looked like a no-look clear. It went straight to a Panther. He freaking blasts it into the net, It's like mistakes like that are really eating them up. But I do want to mention some fun things. Sharky posted some photos taken of him coming into the arena, and he had a nice little outfit going for yesterday's game. He was wearing a red jersey with the secondary Sharks logo, the shark fin, in like it's red and gold, and it has the cute little clouds. I think I don't know if it's on the logo on your hat or the secondary with the snake. There's like little clouds, very similar, very anime-esque. But yeah, he's wearing this really cute hockey outfit to match some of the Lions that walked in with him. I don't know if I saw anything else based off of that night, but we did discuss some of the things that were being offered like on the concourse last week's episode. Did you get to check out any of the stuff, or did you just sit in your seat the whole time?
I mostly spent way too much money on merch, and yeah, like I did see you mentioned last week about the calligraphy. There was a post showing the person who was there. It doesn't look like people were able to participate in the actual activity of it, but she was demoing and looks like she may have been selling some of it at the booth that she was at. I do recall an in-arena experience, not related to Lunar New Year, but you know how they do the cams, like you can scan the QR code or whatever and get your face on the Jumbotron. So in the third period, I don't remember if it was during intermission. It must have been, because it was a long time that they did this, where there was this big, there was this parent with their child, like infant, and and they were showing him on the jumbotron, and then right after that, they showed a pair of Panthers fans in attendance. And of course, people were booing them. And then they went right back to the baby. And then everyone would be like, yay! And then they go to the Panthers fans, boo! And it kept going back and forth, back and forth. But then at one point, I think the infant got bothered by it and then started crying. We're like,
Oh.
no!
Poor baby. I love when those things happen. Like fans know exactly what to do.
So, yeah, I was kind of hoping that because we were right next to where the backup goalie would sit, I was kind of hoping that I'd get to see Spencer Knight, but it looked like he was further down in the hall and not sitting like right where we usually see him. So, oh well, but yeah, I remember most of the in-arena experience that night than the actual game, since I only really recall most of what I saw right in front of me. But so a couple of quotes from the post-game interview. Right before I mentioned those, I was talking to my friend about, despite the losing streak that we're on, the latest losing streak that we're on, I'm not, me as a fan, I'm not as upset about it. Like, it, generally speaking, it's upsetting because you do want them to win, because winning is good, and then winning also helps the positive levels in the locker room. And so for me, that's what I'm most concerned about, that if we don't figure out how to close out these games, that we don't want to see how they were in any of the previous seasons. Like we already talked briefly about how we don't really feel like this is rock bottom because look at all the previous seasons, but then it is difficult from the players' perspective because they're the ones that are going out there every night and they're trying to win these games. It's not like they don't want to win. It's just like whatever's happening, they just can't seem to close it out. And then especially if you go up and you have a really good period and then something happens and you collapse along the way. And so that's what I'm most concerned about. We know like Celebrini, he's got a high expectation for himself, and we've seen him in post-game interviews where just even if he hits a milestone for himself, he's like pretty much like, I don't care about that. I want this team to win. That's the milestone that I'm looking towards, not an individual award, or praise for myself. So Shane got a couple of tweets from the guys, and then Warsofsky after the game. Toffoli says, it's a shitty feeling. Wallman says we gave up too easily. Smith is embarrassing for us to do this in front of our home crowd. And Warsofsky said, we think we were working hard, but we don't even have a clue how hard you have to work to win in this league consistently.
Yeah, that's an interesting quote from Warsofsky because it feels like he's including himself in that. It is his first NHL coaching gig. He's still figuring things out, how things are going, as well as everyone on the team, with all of the new guys who have come up from playing in juniors or the NCAA, college, whatever it is. They're all kind of trying to figure out how this works, and they're doing it together in real time as we're watching. They did figure it out for a minute, and they lost it again. Now we have to watch them figure it out again. So it's like it's this really, I wouldn't say unique experience, but maybe as a Sharks fan, it's a bit unique because it's might be like one of the first times you're actually watching a bunch of young guys developing at the same time in this rebuild. Like the last time you can consider this team doing a quote unquote rebuild, which it wasn't really, was when it was first created back in the 90s. You know, they were building themselves up from nothing with a bunch of random players, because I don't know how the extension draft worked back then. But it wasn't a bunch of young guys, you know. This is different. The coach is young. If you guys don't remember, he's the youngest coach in the league. He's working on it. He's figuring things out. I think it's gonna suck for a little bit longer, but at least they're still fun to watch, you know? At the very least.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, Greer hasn't come down from his ivory tower yet, so I think that's an improvement. We remember when that happened last season after the awful start that we had, and we haven't had that situation. So, and we know the vibes are good with the players, so they want to do it for each other, and they want to do it for obviously the fans, and they're not just kind of coming in and punching their ticket, getting their hours done and going home. Like, this is their livelihood. It is tough to see Warshawski, and of course it's we don't want like the hockey answers, you know, things that don't make any sense, and you can tell that they're not really going to tell you exactly how it is. With Warshawski, I think it is a little tough to swallow at times when he makes certain mentions like he did last night. But like people's feelings, of course, are valid in their frustrations with the team, but I kind of do a okay when people say to fire Warshawski, like like, even if we had whoever, I don't remember his name, the dude that took the Bruins to success, and now he's with Vegas. Like, even if we had that dude in our locker room, like, dude's not gonna come here for that.
Right.
Dude's out there winning, you know, trying to get whatever team that he's behind the bench of to the cup. And who's to say that a coach like that, who knows what it takes to win, doesn't necessarily mean that they are the best person for a rebuild. It's an entirely different situation. And we've seen, as we've already mentioned, right before we hit the reset button and we started a rebuild, how many coaches did we go through while we were still at varying levels of the ability to make the playoffs? It's like we have the guys that we need. It's just like, I don't think the Predators, and maybe I just don't follow them that closely, but I don't think the Predators expected they would be down here, you know, with us, or else they wouldn't have signed like UC Saros. Yeah, Stamkos wouldn't come over here. Marchessault wouldn't have signed over there. Like, they're not in the same situation as us, and so it's not surprising that they beat us. It would have been great if we beat them, but it's not surprising to me that they beat us. It's definitely not surprising that we got beaten by the Panthers. It's certainly not surprising that we got beaten by the Bruins. These are tough teams
with superstars and a bunch of them. Like, who do we have on our roster? Celebrini, an 18-year-old kid who's just starting out in the league. Come on, guys.
Yeah, like I said, you know, it's valid to be frustrated with the team. You know, especially if you're here every game, you're dedicating 3 hours plus of your evening to watch this team, and they get you excited only to turn around and be like, just kidding. Like, it is frustrating. Yeah, it is frustrating. But like we've already harped about, this does not feel like rock bottom. There was rock bottom seasons and seasons previous to this where you question what was the point of turning on the game tonight.
Bob Bugner days were rock bottom.
Woo, those were rough. Woo, remember those? Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So yeah, like it's frustrating, and I'm more concerned with the guys in the locker room in terms of they really want to come out here and win for us, and they're trying to figure it out, and we don't want them to get too hard on themselves. But it has been a rough week. We're figuring it out. We're making improvements along the way. It's gonna get rough, extra rough here soon as the trade deadline draws near. We're gonna look much worse. But it's all temporary pain. It's all temporary pain. We've already mentioned how insane it is. There were aspects of last night's game, and I can't really pinpoint any specific ones, but there were when you really take a look at the skill level of Celebrini, it is exponentially more impressive to watch it even closer. I'm like, wow, this guy is amazing.
Yeah. There was this play. His hand-eye coordination is insane. On I want to say Thursday was the game I watched. Like the puck was in the air, kind of like not high or whatever. It was in the air, and he just knocked it down with his stick like it was nothing. Was able to make a play out of that and like keep going. Like how many people do you see in the league making those plays? Like
in their first season.
Correct.
These are the best. This is the best league in the world. And this 18-year-old is skating circles and neck with some of the best who have been in this league, who have won cups. He is right there with them. And it's only his first season.
Yeah.
Crazy.
So, yeah, it's frustrating now, but I'm sure it's going to get more exciting in a little bit here. Just be patient, y'all. We'll be okay.
Okay, so something that we mentioned right before we hopped on to mucho Sharks talk. Want to follow up on the Edmonton Oilers statement that was put out when Connor McDavid, Connor McDavid was assessed a 3-game suspension by the Department of Player Safety. And they put out a statement, and I want to get your reaction to this because the Edmonton Oilers have released the following statement regarding the 3-game suspension of team captain Connor McDavid. The Oilers organization is disappointed, and we share in our fans' frustration over the 3-game suspension of our captain Connor McDavid. We support him through this process, and the organization and our fans support to having him back in the lineup versus Seattle next week. So right before I get your reaction, I also want to mention, I'm going to correct myself from last week, that Connor has been previously suspended.
Mm-hmm.
Now your reaction.
I'm sorry, hold on. This feels like he went on the NHLPA sort of program for whatever substance abuse. Like, we support him through this process. Like, he's gonna be gone for 3 games. He'll be back. I'm wondering if it's because he's taking it really hard or whatever, but I don't know. This statement was it wasn't really necessary. Like, everyone saw the penalty he took. It was blatant. It wasn't an accident of any sort. So I don't know. This is silly to me. This feels like a joke.
So his previous suspension, he was assessed a 2-game suspension, deemed an illegal check to the head of defenseman Nick Leddy. This occurred a couple of seasons back. So I say that only because that means that he has a history, and we've, as much as it's confusing, like I'm not saying that the Department of Player Safety has any sort of like we can't hold them. They don't. At the end of the day, they still make some decisions where I'm like, that doesn't make any sense. So, not saying that this is anywhere consistent, but I feel like they tried to put those sort of things in there in reasoning of why they give the certain verdict and whatever. So him having a previous history and getting suspended so he gets these 3 games seems fair. We did talk about how while we didn't watch this game, if the refs aren't calling certain things, whether they just blindly decide to overlook it or they're missing it or whatever, and tensions are running high during a game and something happens prior to McDavid taking this cross check to Connor Garland's face. We've talked about, it's not great. McDavid's probably frustrated, but at the end of the day, you can't cross-check someone in the face, and he did that. Initially, when this came out, I saw that McDavid wasn't planning to appeal, and my initial reaction to that was, oh, well, McDavid knows what he did, and I usually feel like appealing it, I just kind of eye roll and think, okay, you're not going to learn anything from the suspension. You're just going to sit there and you're going to fume and you're going to be upset, and then you're just going to come back upset and you're not going to learn anything from it. That's what I kind of felt like McDavid understood that, I deserve it. And while I didn't watch the full interview, there was a clip and a quote that was that he did make when asked about it. And he basically said, well, if the whistle were to have gone blown initially, maybe this wouldn't have happened. And I'm never mind. I take back all of my good on McDavid. Okay, maybe he doesn't think he deserves it either, but he's fine, whatever. But, maybe call something, or, so next time I don't cross-check him in the face.
Where's the accountability?
Yeah, fine, whatever, guys. Typical hockey player. But yeah, the statement that the Oilers put out, we are disappointed. Disappointed that they're following rules that you're not supposed to. Anyways, whatever.
It's because they're not supposed to apply to superstars. Don't you know that?
There's an asterisk there that says, with the exception of Connor McDavid.
Right.
All right. Let's close out with some really awesome news. So Thailand has just been.
This is not hockey related, by the way.
Yes. Completely not hockey related, but some feel good news. Thailand has just been having a party, then hosting weddings for all the gays in the community.
One giant gay party.
I think the ones that really touched me were the ones with older couples that have been together for a million years. They haven't had this right, and they're coming out and they're just super adorable together, and they just want this simple ability to be married to one another. So them having this chance to do it, so wholesome.
Just a couple of quotes I wanted to take from this article. NPR wrote an article. Adam Hancock for NPR wrote an article about this and interviewed some people who decided to get married because of this on the very first day that it was legalized. Someone named, oh gosh, I'm so bad at pronouncing names. I want to say Antika Sangshai. I'm so sorry if that's wrong. Said, I feel more secure in our life because we can be a family and be recognized as a couple in society. Sangshai also said, this is special for us because this is a day of history in Thailand. Someone else named Tom Tan said, Thailand is the perfect country to do it because the society is really open to gay people. You can basically just be gay and you're fine in Thailand. This is more about building a life together and having the legal rights to protect what we build together. And it's nice to see, especially with the political climate here in the States right now. It is nice to see, specifically around queer rights, that this is happening somewhere else in the world. We always love this heartwarming news, as heavy as news has been here. If y'all are looking to get married, y'all got to take a trip to Thailand because they know how it's done. They had like this whole rainbow carpet for them to walk on. It's so cute. That's it.
Yeah, just take it all in. The wholesome news. This last picture, I want to show it here on the pod because this is what I was mentioning. I don't know if it's the exact couple that I saw earlier in the week, but just this elderly couple just coming down the Rainbow Road. Been together for a million years.
It's cute.
You just love to see it.
Absolutely. Love this for us.
All right.
So in this economy.
All right. So that's it for us this week on the pod. Any closing thoughts?
I hope the Sharks do better this week. That's about it. Probably going to take a step away next weekend. I don't know if you're going to be here, but I won't.
All right. So I guess we'll check in the next time we're here. Hopefully the Sharks did better. And if not, well, I mean, I'm looking forward to the trade deadline. We know what the bigger picture is here in Sharks territory, and it's going to suck to see some folks go depending on how things come about, but hopefully we'll have some good things to talk about despite having to say goodbye to some folks. Until then, I am your host, Jay.
And I'm other host, Ness. Thanks for joining us, guys. Bye.
Goodbye.